70-742 Lab 4 Configuring Service Authentication and Account Policies. So we'll pick up what we learned in our lesson and complement that with our lab. We've got a number of exercises and lab challenge that we're going to be doing. We're going to be using two servers in this. We're going to be using our DC1, so I'm going to go ahead and tell that to turn on right now. We're also going to be using server 1, so as soon as my screen refreshes, I'll go ahead and get that coming on. So we're going to be looking at configuring Kerberos policy settings, configuring service account, creating a managed service account, configuring Kerberos and Kerberos delegation, and configure a domain password and lockout policy. So in our first exercise, we're going to be looking at configuring Kerberos policy settings. We'll do that using our default domain policy. Kerberos is the default authentication mechanism in an Active Directory domain services environment and plays a critical role in authorization and auditing. Because Kerberos is used as part of the Active Directory domain, Kerberos settings can be configured only at the domain level with a GPO. So remember that, has to be at the domain level. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to connect to our domain controller. Wait for it to come up here. Should be up here in just a moment. Oh, it still says I have to power it on. That was unexpected. There we are. So we're going to log in. And once we do log in, we're going to be going to Tools and then Group Policy Management. And we're up. Let's go Tools, Group Policy Management. Once our Group Policy Management comes up, we're going to expand our forest. We're going to expand our domains. We're going to expand to datum.com. And we're going to click on the default domain policy. And you'll see that there's a notice that says, hey, we've selected a link. Changes you make here will be global to the GPO. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to click OK. We're going to then right click our default domain policy and select Edit. And we're just going to make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to work with. See all our settings. We're going to be working with computer configuration. We're going to expand the policies node, and then Windows settings, and then finally security settings. We're going to expand account policies, and we're going to select our Kerberos policy. So you'll notice for our default domain policy, this is already set. Well, let's go ahead and we're going to double click maximum tolerance for computer clock synchronization. And what is the maximum tolerance for computer clock synchronization shown to be? This is your question number 1. So go ahead and put that value in for question number 1. So let's go ahead and we're going to change that to 4 minutes. All right, click OK. What does that do? That means that any system that has a system time that is off by more than 4 minutes, it's going to fail authentication. It won't be able to connect. Let's double click maximum lifetime for user ticket. We're going to change that from 10 hours to 8 hours. Once you've changed it to 8 hours, go ahead and click OK. And you'll see that there's suggested values that it's going to modify, and we're going to go ahead and accept that. Going to click OK. And now this is your first browser screenshot. Go ahead and take a screenshot of your entire browser and paste it into step 11. So we can go ahead and we can close our editor. We can close our group policy management. We've completed exercise 4.1. In exercise 4.2, we're going to be creating a service account. We're going to create a traditional service account, and then we're going to use that account with a service. A service account is an account under which an operating system, process, or service runs. We explained this in our lesson. A service account can allow the application or service specific rights and permissions to function properly while maximizing the permissions required for all the users using the application server. Service accounts are used to run Microsoft Exchange, Microsoft SQL Server, Internet Information Services, and SharePoint as some examples. So we're going to go to Tools. We're going to select Active Directory Users and Computers. Once it comes up, we're going to, our datum.com node is already expanded. We're going to right click our datum.com. We're going to select New Organizational Unit. And for its name, we're going to type in Service Accounts. And click OK. And there's our new organizational unit. Right-click the Service Accounts organizational unit and choose New User. We're going to give the first name to be App1, and the last name will be Service. The user logon name will be App1 Service, all one word. We're going to click Next, and we're going to assign our default password. Now, understand, this is not what you would normally do. You would want a very strong password for a service account, but since we're doing this in our test environment, we're not going to. And it looks like I misspelled password. Let's do that one more time. Once you've got your password and confirm password typed in, we're going to go ahead and we're going to deselect Change it Next Logon. We're going to select Password Never Expires. We're going to click Next, and we're going to click Finish. Go ahead and take a screenshot showing your App1 service user account being created in the Service OU. Let's jump over to Server 1, Lun SVR1. We're going to go ahead and we're going to turn that on. We're going to log in. Once it's logged on, we're going to go to Tools and then Services in Server Manager. Okay, our Server Manager is up, so we're going to go Tools and Services. Once our services come up, we're going to scroll down to SMTP Trap Service. And there's our SMTP Trap Service. We're going to double click on it. We're going to select the Logon tab. And we're going to select this account. And in the account, we're going to type in a datum / App1 Service. And we're going to put our password that we assigned to the account in. We're going to confirm that password. We're going to click OK. And you can see the account, a datum / App1 Service, has been granted the logon as a service right. We click OK. Now, question number 2. What must be done in order for the service to use the specified service account? If this was a service that was already running and we changed the credentials under which it was going to run, what do you think you would need to do? Well, it just kind of makes sense. You would have to restart the service. So there's your answer. We would have to restart the service. In this case, the SMTP trap service had not been started, so we're just going to click Start the Service. We'll wait a moment for the service to successfully start. And it has started and it is running. Go ahead and take a screenshot of your whole browser and paste it into step number 20. We have completed exercise 4.2. Let's move on to exercise 4.3, which is creating a managed service account. In this exercise, we're going to create and deploy a managed service account. That's an MSA. Rather than manually changing the account password and the password for a service or application, you can use a managed service account, which the password automatically changes on a regular basis. This is what we were talking about in the lesson that I indicated we'd be doing in the lab. So we're going to go back in to our domain controller. Let's switch back to LUN DC1. And in Active Directory Users and Computers, we're going to right-click on the computers container. And we're going to say New Group. And we're going to call that group Server Group, all one word. Now, let's answer a question. Which group scope and group type was selected? Did we make any changes? We didn't make any changes. What is selected? Global is the scope and security is the type. If you've answered question 3, click OK. Now, right-click on the server group and go to Properties. And we're going to add some members. So click the Members tab and then click Add. And we're going to add LUN-SVR1 to that. So I'm going to type in SVR1. I'm going to press OK. And I didn't do this correctly. I skipped a step. You'll notice that when we're going to add, it says user service accounts, groups, or other objects. I did that on purpose, by the way. What you have to do, if you want to add a server or a computer, you need to click Object Types and select Computers. Then click OK, and now it added it successfully. Go ahead and click, if you've added LUN SVR1, go ahead and close the properties. Still in our LUNDC, in Server Manager, we're going to run the Active Directory module for PowerShell. This is a special PowerShell module that's installed when we made this a domain controller. And it's right here, third item down. So go ahead and select that. And we're going to run the following command to create a key distribution services route for our domain. Add KDS root tab complete space -EFF tab complete space parenthesis get -date parentheses no space dot add hours parenthesis -10 parenthesis press enter. Make sure that when you're typing in the parameter of the get date dot add hours -10, there's no spaces there. Okay? Now, go ahead and take a screenshot of your browser and paste it into step number 10. We're going to execute another command. This one is going to create an Active Directory service account. It is new AD service account. dash name space, we're going to call it app2 service space dash DNS host name space, this is where it's going to get created, lun dash dc1.adatum.com, another space, dash principles allowed. I'm not going to try to type all that in. It's principles allowed to delegate to account. That's what first comes up, but you got to hit tab another time. We want principles allowed to retrieve managed password. Save yourself a lot of typing. Do dash PRIN, hit tab a second time until you see principles allowed to retrieve managed password. If you hit it another time, it changes again to delegated to account. Hit it again, it'll come back to retrieve managed password. And then another space, we're going to reference our group, server group. Remember that you can give rights and permissions not only to individual users or computers but to groups, and that's what we're doing here. So any device that we give membership into that server group gets this permission. So new AD service account dash name app2 service dash DNS hostname lun-dc1.adatum.com hyphen principles allowed to retrieve managed passwords, all one word, space server group. Server group has to be one word. Go ahead and press enter. Completed. I want you to go back to Active Directory, and we're going to click on the managed service accounts under Adatum, and there's our app2 service. And here's that object type that we talked about earlier in our lesson. So go ahead and take that screenshot right now and paste that into step number 12. Now what we need to do is we need to associate a managed service account to a computer account. So in the we're going to run we're still running our Active Directory module for PowerShell. We're going to run the following command: add-ad computer service account space dash ID for identity, tab complete, lun dash svr1, another space, dash service account app2 service, and press enter. Okay, so now let's switch back over to our Lun Server 1. Our services are still up, but what we have to do is we need to add that same PowerShell module over here. So we're going to go to Manage, Add Roles, and, whoops, nope, not Remove. Manage, Add Roles and Features. Next, next, next. We're going to select Active Directory Domain Services. And you see it's going to add that same PowerShell for Windows PowerShell module for Windows PowerShell. We're going to click Add Features. We're going to do Next, 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 and Install. We're going to wait for that installation to finish, and then we'll complete this. Okay, and it completed, but we are not, and I repeat, we are not promoting this to a domain controller. Simply click Close. And if we go to our Server Manager, under Tools, you can select Active Directory Module for PowerShell. And we're going to run the same command as what we ran over on the DC. going to take a moment. There, it loaded. Okay, we're going to run add dash AD computer service account a space dash ID for identity a space LUN dash SVR1 another space dash service account a space and the name of the account app2 service and press enter. Okay, now we should be able to go to our tools and we should be able to double click on our SMTP trap service. And we're going to click log on and we're going to change this from app1 service to app2 service with a $sign on the end. And here's question number 4. Why is a $sign used? Anybody get this in their reading? We have to do it because managed service accounts are similar to computer accounts. If we want to be able to run something as a computer account, it has to have a $sign on the end of it. Go ahead and clear the passwords. Remember, that was one of the reasons why we do this. Click OK. So we've got our message stating that it won't take effect until you stop and restart the service. We're going to simply click OK here. And we're not going to be using this service. We're not going to run SMTP trap. There's no point to it. So at this point, I'm going to indicate everyone needs to simply click stop the service. It's going to stop and we have completed. Now go ahead and take a screenshot of your browser showing the app2 service being assigned to the SMTP trap. That goes in your step number 34. And that completes this exercise. But we're going to stay logged into server 1 and our DC1. Let's jump back over to DC1. We're going to do exercise 4.4. And this is configuring Kerberos and Kerberos Delegation. We're going to create an SPN, a service principal name, for an account, and then we'll configure Kerberos Delegation. An SPN is the name by which a client uniquely identifies an instance of a service. Here again, we discussed this in our lesson. The client locates the service based on the SPN, which has to have 3 components. It consists of 3 components. The service class, such as HTTP or HTTPS, perhaps SQL service, the host name, and the port. So service class, host name, and port. On our DC1, we're going to close out our windows here. We're going to go to Tools. We're going to go to ADSI Edit, a very powerful tool. We're going to right-click ADSI Edit and select Connect To. And we're going to click OK. That connects us to our default naming convention. Go ahead and double-click Default Naming Convention, single-click, and then expand a datum com, and then scroll down to where you see Service Accounts and double-click on that. I'm going to make this window a little bit larger. Here again, we're a little restricted in our browser. In the detail panes, that's our center pane. Right-click App1 Service and choose Properties. In the attributes, we're going to scroll down till we see Service Principal Name. It should be alphabetical. There we are, Service Principal Name. Double-click on it. So we're going to put this in. We're going to type in http:/portal.adatum.com. colon 443, the service class, the host name, and the port. Click Add. Go ahead and take a screenshot of your browser and paste it into step number 7. We're going to click OK once and twice. Now, let's go to Active Directory Users and Computers. And we're going to go into the Service Accounts OU. We're going to right-click App 1 Service and go to Properties. You'll notice there's a Delegation tab of one of the many tabs that's there. Select Delegation. What is Delegation used for? Well, your description's right there. It allows services to act on behalf of another user. That's what delegation does. It allows services to act on behalf of another user. So we're going to allow this account to be delegated for a service. So we're going to select trust this user for delegation to any service, Kerberos only. Go ahead and click OK. And we can go ahead and we have completed this exercise. Go ahead and close any open windows. Now in our lesson I said we'd be talking about password policies and we'd be looking at the settings in that. So that's our lab challenge. Let's go back to Tools. We're going to Group Policy Management. Notice sometimes it opens up on the back end and it opens up behind Server Manager. You have to click down the bottom to get it to come up on your screen. My default domain policy is still here shown. My nodes are still expanded. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go Edit. And in our left pane, let's make this a little bit larger. We're going to work in computer configuration. Why is a password policy done under computer configuration? Well, user configurations are applied to users after they've logged on. If a password policy was done as a user configuration, no user would ever be able to log on because they would have not gotten the password policy. It's done in computer configuration. Go ahead and expand policies, then expand Windows settings, expand security settings, and expand account policies. Go ahead and select password policy. Here's your password policy. Now you did an exercise like this in Network Plus. But we can take a look. Question number 6. What's the maximum password age? Well, it's 42 days. Question number 7. What's the minimum password length? Has to be at least 7 characters long. How many passwords are being remembered? In other words, how many unique passwords have to be used before you can repeat one? 24. I think that's a little over the top personally. What's the minimum password age? 1 day. Why is that? What that does is it stops people from reusing passwords. So in other words, if it was 0, you would be able to change your password, set a new 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 password, until you got back to the one that you wanted it to be. By doing this, you have to use it for at least, it has to stay in effect for at least a day. So question number 8 is, how does enforced password history and minimum password age work together to keep a network environment secure? Well, I just gave you the answer. It makes sure the same password can't be used over and over. The minimum password age prevents someone from changing it numerous times and getting back to that original password. There's your answer. Let's go ahead and double click minimum password length. We're going to change that from 7 to 8 characters. Go ahead and click OK. Now, Passwords must meet complexity requirements. Double click that and click on the Explain tab. So here you can see what is the requirement for a password complexity. So question number 9 is, what are the requirements for a complex password? In here you'll see that it must be at least 6 characters in length. It must contain characters from 3 of 4 categories: uppercase, lowercase, digits, and non-alphabetical characters. Those are your complexity requirements. Question number 9. Go ahead and click OK. Take a screenshot reflecting those changes that we made. Well, actually only one change, and paste that into step number 10. Let's select Account Lockout Policy. Question number 10 is, how are the account lockout settings currently set? Currently, both the lockout duration and the reset counter are not defined. Therefore, the lockout threshold is also set to 0 invalid logons. Let's define that, because not having a lockout policy makes that other part kind of irrelevant. Someone could just keep trying passwords. So let's go ahead and we're going to double click on lockout duration. We're going to select define this policy, and you'll see it populates with 30 minutes. What is the default value for account lockout duration? Question number 11. Well, your answer is on your screen. Let's go ahead and answer that question and then click OK. You'll notice that it also automatically resets the other 2 values. So question 12 is, how many invalid login attempts can be made that will cause an account to be locked out? Well, we can see that once we click OK, 5 is the value. 5 invalid logon attempts will cause the account to be locked out. Go ahead and click OK. There are our settings. Take another screenshot, paste it in to step number 14. If you've got a screenshot of your whole browser in there, go ahead and close your editor, close the group policy management, and Lab 4 is complete. Thank you.